The hand rose in Table 7's private dining room at 8:19 p.m. Everyone saw it. The violinist near the wine wall missed a note, the assistant manager froze beside the champagne cart, and two black-suited bodyguards turned their heads 1 inch, not enough to stop anything, only enough to prove they had noticed. At the center of the room, an elegant elderly woman in pearls sat very still, her thin hands folded around a cup of untouched tea. The woman standing over her wore winter-white silk, diamonds at her throat, and the expression of someone who had never been told no by a person earning hourly wages. "You forget yourself again, Lucia," the silkwoman said. As her palm began to fall, Elena Marrow crossed the room with a white serving towel in her hand and caught the woman's wrist before it touched skin. The towel wrapped between them, soft cotton against expensive perfume, and the whole restaurant went silent. Elena had been carrying ossobuco to table 4 when she saw the old woman's face change. Not fear exactly, but recognition, because the old woman knew that raised hand. She knew its timing, its smell, its public sweetness, and the way certain families called cruelty concern when the dining room was full enough to provide witnesses. Elena knew that face too, because she had seen it on her grandmother when a doctor spoke around her instead of to her. She had seen it on her own mother after too many years cleaning hotel rooms for women who said dear as if it were a leash. She had seen it in the mirror during the winter she worked double shifts and still had to choose between heat and rent. So Elena moved, and she did not think of Matteo Bellini first. She did not think of the rumor that the man sitting at the far end of the private table owned half the docks, 3 restaurants, 2 judges' secrets, and enough silence to bury any argument before dessert. She did not think of his black suit, his black gloves, or the fact that the men behind him looked less like security and more like consequences. She thought only of the hand, and then she stopped it. "Do not touch her," Elena said. The silkwoman's eyes widened. Her name was Ariadne Voss, though the staff had been told to call her Mrs. Voss and never ask why a woman with that much money needed everyone to hear the title twice. She was not Matteo Bellini's wife or family, but something worse in wealthy houses, a trusted advisor who had learned where grief made doors soft. "Excuse me?" Ariadne said. Elena kept the white serving towel around the woman's wrist, not tight enough to bruise and not loose enough to pretend the moment had been accidental. "I said do not touch her." At the far end of the table, Matteo Bellini stood. The room changed, though not in the way cheap movies made power dramatic. No chair scraped loudly, no glass shattered, and no man shouted his name. The change was cleaner than that. Every waiter in the corridor stepped back, every bodyguard stopped breathing through his mouth, and the assistant manager, who had ignored Elena's schedule requests for 3 weeks, suddenly remembered how to become furniture. Matteo Bellini was 41, Italian-American, clean-shaven, and handsome in a way that looked less like charm than danger polished for formal use. His black suit fit perfectly, and his signet ring caught the candlelight when his gloved hand touched the table. His dark eyes moved first to his mother, then to Ariadne's captured wrist, then to Elena. Elena expected anger, but she got attention. "Let go," Ariadne snapped. "When you step back," Elena said. One of the bodyguards moved forward, Matteo lifted 2 fingers, and the man stopped. Elena noticed that because she noticed everything at work, who touched which glass, who lied about allergies, who tipped badly before asking for extra kindness, who stared at staff as if uniforms made people less human. She had survived 3 years at Bellini's on 6th by reading rooms before rooms decided to crush her. Matteo's mother looked up. Her name was Lucia Bellini, and she was 72, fine-boned, silver-haired, and dressed in navy wool with a pearl brooch at her collar. She had arrived that evening with her son, her companion Ariadne, 4 bodyguards, and the kind of careful silence that made Elena assign her the warmest tea without being asked. Lucia's hand trembled around the cup, and Elena saw that too, along with the tea that had not been touched. "Mother," Matteo said. His voice was quiet enough to be frightening. Lucia flinched anyway, which was the first wrong thing. Elena loosened the towel but did not release Ariadne completely. "Step back." Ariadne stared at her as if a chair had spoken. "You have no idea who you are interrupting." A woman about to hit an elderly guest in my dining room, Elena said. I know enough. The assistant manager made a strangled sound by the door. Matteo looked at him once, and the sound died. Ariadne's face flushed. Lucia is ill and she has episodes. She struck me first last week, and she needs firm correction when she becomes confused. She did not strike you now. You are a waitress. And you are still too close to her. For one long second, nobody moved. Then Lucia Bellini whispered, Elena. Every eye turned. Elena had served Lucia only twice before. The first time, the old woman had ordered minestrone and spent 20 minutes arranging bread crumbs into neat lines on the side plate. The second time, she had asked whether the basil was fresh, then apologized for asking as if questions were a burden she had learned to hide. Elena had brought her a small bowl of chopped basil on the side, because sometimes dignity arrived in small dishes. Lucia remembered her name, and Matteo heard it too, his gaze sharpening. You know my mother? He asked. I know her tea is wrong, Elena said. Ariadne laughed once, bright and false. Her tea? Elena finally released Ariadne's wrist. The white serving towel hung over Elena's hand, still shaped by the interruption. Mrs. Bellini asked for lemon balm tea last time, Elena said. Tonight she was served black tea with bergamot. She has not touched it. The cup is turned handle left, but she used her right hand both times I served her before. Her water glass has a white residue around the rim, and she has been looking at the exit every time you lean toward her. The dining room went still in a different way. Ariadne's smile thinned as Matteo looked at the teacup, then at his mother, then at Elena again. What residue? He asked. Elena wished, briefly, that she had kept her mouth closed. The problem with telling powerful men the truth was that they often treated truth like property once it left you. Still, she was already in the room. I don't know yet, she said. But it is chalky, and it is not from our dishwasher. The head waiter, Marco, stepped into the doorway. Elena, perhaps you should return to your tables. Elena turned her head slowly. Marco had hired her because she could balance 6 plates on one arm and smile through insults. He had kept her part-time for 2 years to avoid paying health benefits. He had once told her that poor girls made better servers because hunger taught humility. No, she said. Marco blinked as Matteo Bellini's eyes moved to him, then remembered he had somewhere else to look. Ariadne recovered first and pressed a hand to her chest. This is absurd. Matteo, your mother has been under medical supervision. Her confusion worsens when strangers indulge her little habits. I corrected her because she tried to embarrass herself. Lucia's fingers tightened around the cup. Elena saw it, but Matteo did not. Not because he was stupid, he saw threats, exits, alliances, debt, disrespect, and opportunity with the speed of a blade opening. But he did not see the tiny ways fear behaved in an aging hand, because fear near his mother made him become a wall. Walls protected badly when the person behind them needed air. Elena stepped closer to Lucia, and one bodyguard shifted. Stop crowding her, Elena said. The bodyguard looked to Matteo, who did not answer immediately. Elena held his gaze. If she is confused, surrounding her with black suits and raised voices will not make her safer. It will make her smaller. Ariadne inhaled sharply. The assistant manager closed his eyes as if listening to the sound of his own career ending. Matteo's expression did not change, but something behind it did. Elena could feel the room waiting for the punishment that would follow a waitress correcting a mafia boss in front of his people. It did not come. Enzo, Matteo said. The largest bodyguard straightened. Move the men back. Enzo hesitated for half a breath, then obeyed. The men stepped away from Lucia's chair, and Lucia breathed. Elena heard it before anyone else seemed to. Mrs. Bellini, Elena said gently, would you like fresh tea? Lucia looked at Ariadne. There it was, permission-seeking, and Elena knew that one too. Not from her, Ariadne said. I asked Mrs. Bellini. She does not know what she wants. Lucia's eyes dropped. Matteo's hand curled once at his side. This was the point where men like him usually made things worse. They interpreted obedience as care and fear as proof of danger. They carried people away from rooms instead of asking why those people had gone quiet in them. Elena lowered herself slightly, not crouching like Lucia was a child, just bringing her voice under the storm line. "Lemon balm?" she asked. Lucia's lips moved. "With honey," the old woman whispered. Elena smiled. "I remember." For the first time that evening, Lucia's mouth softened, and Matteo saw it hit him harder than the stopped slap. "Get it," he said. Elena did not move, and his eyes returned to hers. "Please," he added. Ariadne looked as if someone had cracked a window in winter. Elena nodded once. "I'll bring it myself." She walked to the service station with the white serving towel still in her hand and every nerve in her body awake. Behind her, the private dining room remained silent. Nobody resumed eating, nobody joked, and nobody pretended the evening had returned to normal. Normal had raised its hand and been caught, and in the kitchen, the chef looked up from the pass. "What did you do?" "Stopped a slap." He stared. "For table 7? "Yes." "For Bellini's mother?" "Yes." The sous chef crossed himself. Elena washed her hands, took a clean teapot, and prepared lemon balm with the care she gave every guest who looked lonely enough to apologize for existing. She added honey on the side, not in the cup. Ariadne would have dosed the cup directly. People who controlled others loved deciding sweetness for them. As the tea steeped, Elena examined the old cup she had carried from the dining room. The white residue on the rim clung unevenly near the place Lucia's lip would have touched. Elena rubbed it with the corner of the towel and smelled bitter mint, chalk, and a medicinal sweetness she recognized from the nursing home where her grandmother spent her last year. Crushed antacid, not dangerous alone but useful if someone wanted to hide the taste of another powder. Elena looked at the tea leaves left in the strainer, and they were not from Bellini's pantry. She knew because she inventoried the tea station every Thursday after closing, unpaid, because Marco liked to call it Team Pride. Their bergamot blend had long black curls and dried orange peel. This cup held shorter leaves, gray-green flecks, and tiny pale pellets that dissolved when touched. Her stomach tightened. "Marco," she called. He appeared too quickly. "You need to leave this alone." "Where did table 7's tea come from?" "The service station." "No." "Elena." "Where?" His eyes flicked toward the private hallway, which was answer enough. Elena poured the lemon balm tea, placed the cup on a clean saucer, added a small silver pot of honey, and tucked the white serving towel over her forearm. Then she took the contaminated cup with her. Marco grabbed her elbow before she could leave. "If you walk back in there with accusations, I cannot protect you." Elena looked at his hand until he removed it. "You never protected me when the risks were smaller." His face reddened. She went back to table 7, where Matteo stood by his mother's chair now but was not touching her. That mattered. Enzo and the other men stood back near the wall, while Ariadne had regained some color and was speaking quietly into Lucia's ear. Lucia looked trapped inside politeness as Elena set the fresh tea down. "Lemon balm, honey on the side." Lucia reached for it. Ariadne caught the old woman's wrist, and Elena's body moved before Matteo's did. The white serving towel snapped once in the air, clean and sharp, and landed over Ariadne's hand. "You were warned," Elena said. This time the room did not merely go silent, it held its breath. Matteo looked at the towel on Ariadne's hand, then at Ariadne. "Release my mother." Ariadne did, slowly. Lucia picked up the tea by herself. Her hand shook, but nobody moved to steady it. Elena watched the cup, ready only if asked. Lucia took one sip, and her eyes closed in something that was not relief exactly, but return. "Thank you," Lucia whispered. Elena smiled. "You're welcome." Matteo's gaze stayed on his mother as if he had just realized she could still return from places he had assumed were already lost. Then Elena placed the contaminated cup on the table. You need to have this tested. Ariadne's laugh was brittle. This is becoming theatrical. No, Elena said. Theater would have better lighting. Enzo coughed once. Matteo did not. Explain, he said. Elena pointed to the rim. Crushed antacid, maybe to hide bitterness. The leaves are not from this restaurant's tea stock. There are pellets in the strainer that dissolve too fast for tea. I don't know what they are, and I am not pretending to be a doctor. But I know this cup was not prepared by my station. Matteo's face went very still. Who prepared it? Elena looked at Marco in the doorway. Marco went pale, and then she looked at Ariadne. Someone who did not expect a waitress to inventory tea. Ariadne stood. I will not be insulted by staff. Then stop giving staff material. Matteo turned to Enzo. No one leaves this room. Elena's head snapped toward him. Not like that. The command had come naturally to him, like breathing underwater for a man born beneath the surface. The bodyguards had already shifted toward the exits. Lucia's cup trembled. Several regular diners beyond the glass partition stared through the curtains. Matteo looked at Elena, and his jaw worked once. No one leaves, he repeated, quieter, until Mrs. Bellini is comfortable and we know what was served. Better, Elena said. Enzo looked at the ceiling, perhaps praying for patience. Lucia made a tiny sound that might have been a laugh, and Matteo heard it. His face changed for less than a second, but Elena saw enough: surprise, pain, hunger, and something like gratitude before discipline closed over it. Ariadne saw it too. That was when Elena understood Ariadne's real power. The woman did not control Lucia because she was stronger than Matteo. She controlled Lucia because she knew Matteo loved his mother through fear, and fear made him late. The teacup became the first piece of evidence, and the white serving towel became the second. Not because it held Ariadne's wrist, though it did. Because when Elena folded it afterward, a faint violet smear appeared near one corner, almost invisible beneath the cotton weave. Elena stared at it because Ariadne wore pale lavender gloves. Don't touch the towel, Elena said. Matteo followed her gaze. What is it? Transfer, she said. From her glove. Maybe makeup, maybe cleaning powder, maybe whatever was on the tea packet. Ariadne smiled coldly. Now the waitress is a chemist. No, Elena said. Still just the waitress who caught your hand. Matteo stepped closer to Ariadne. She did not flinch, which meant she believed she had protection beyond manners. Where did the tea come from? He asked. From your concern, Ariadne said smoothly. You asked me to manage her evenings. You said she became difficult when routines changed. I followed the regimen arranged by Dr. Bell. Lucia's cup clicked against the saucer. Elena looked at her, and there it was again, not confusion but fear tied into a knot. Mrs. Bellini, Elena said, do you know Dr. Bell? Ariadne's voice sharpened. Do not question her. I asked Mrs. Bellini. Lucia looked at her son first. Elena spoke before Matteo could. You don't have to answer him. You can answer yourself. The old woman's eyes filled. Matteo looked as if Elena had placed a blade carefully between his ribs and called it mercy. Bell is not a doctor, Lucia whispered. Nobody moved. Ariadne went white, and Matteo's voice was almost nothing. Mother. Lucia turned the cup with both hands, handle right this time. Bell was your father's man. He signed papers. He told me I was forgetful. He told everyone I was forgetful. Matteo gripped the back of a chair. Elena saw his power flare, terrible and useless, searching for something to break. She reached for the white serving towel, folded it once, and set it between his gloved hand and the chair. He looked down at it. Do not make this about your rage, she said softly. The sentence should have destroyed her, but it did not. Matteo looked at his mother instead. What papers? Lucia swallowed. Ariadne took one step toward the door. Enzo blocked her without being asked. Property papers, Lucia said. Foundation papers. I signed when I was tired, sometimes after tea and sometimes after pills. Ariadne said it was for maintenance, for the house, for the children's hospital. I wanted to be useful. Her voice broke on useful, and Elena's chest tightened. That was the cruelest theft, not money but usefulness, and the people who preyed on aging women knew exactly which door to open. Matteo crouched beside his mother's chair, and the whole room watched him lower himself until his eyes were level with hers. He did not touch her hands. Did I fail you? He asked. Lucia's face crumpled. You were always so angry when you were afraid, she whispered. I stopped telling you what frightened me. That was the quiet turn. Not because the restaurant softened, or because danger disappeared, but because the most powerful man in the room finally understood that his protection had been arriving in a shape his mother could not use. Elena stood beside them with the white serving towel folded over her forearm, and for once she did not speak. This was not her door to open, it was his, and Matteo bowed his head. I am listening now, he said. Lucia touched his hair with trembling fingers. Ariadne looked away, and that small gesture condemned her more completely than any accusation. After that, the private dining room became a different kind of battlefield. Matteo wanted names, ledgers, signatures, doctors, copies, drivers, dates, and the location of every paper his mother had signed in the last year. Enzo wanted to remove Ariadne through the back corridor. Marco wanted to pretend the restaurant had never served tea. The diners beyond the curtain wanted a story they could repeat without being named in it. Elena wanted Lucia to eat. Soup, she said. Matteo looked up from his phone. What? Your mother needs food before this becomes 3 hours of men discussing documents over her head. Enzo blinked. Matteo looked at Lucia, who looked tired enough to vanish. What kind of soup? Matteo asked her. Lucia's eyes moved to Elena, but Elena did not answer for her. White bean, Lucia said after a moment. With rosemary. We don't have that on tonight's menu, Marco said. Elena turned. We have cannellini in prep, rosemary in the lamb station, and stock from lunch. That is not how service works. It is how kitchens work when nobody is performing authority at them. The chef, listening from the hallway, barked a laugh. Matteo looked at Marco. Make the soup. Elena lifted one finger. Ask. Matteo stopped. The room waited until he turned toward the chef. Can you make the soup? The chef's grin spread slowly. For Mrs. Bellini, yes. Lucia watched this exchange with careful wonder, and Elena saw that too. Small choices mattered when someone had spent months being managed instead of asked. While the soup cooked, Elena took inventory of the table, not like a detective in a coat but like a waitress who knew tables told the truth after guests believed the staff had stopped reading them. Ariadne's bread plate had no crumbs, though she had torn a roll in half earlier. Her wine glass held less wine than the pour should have left. The small leather folder beside her chair had a pressure mark from a signet seal that was not Matteo's. Elena pointed to it. That folder. Ariadne's hand twitched, and Matteo saw it this time. Enzo. Elena held up the towel. No grabbing. Ask for it. Enzo gave her a look that suggested he had survived storms, betrayals, and worse instructions, but this one troubled him most. Mrs. Boss, he said with visible pain, please place the folder on the table. She did not. Lucia spoke first. It has the foundation forms. Matteo closed his eyes once. Elena kept her voice steady. Mrs. Bellini, did you sign them tonight? No. Was she trying to make you? Lucia looked at Ariadne, then at the white serving towel in Elena's hand, then at Matteo crouched beside her chair instead of towering over it. After dessert, Lucia said. Ariadne's face hardened. You ungrateful old woman. The insult had barely left her mouth before the room went cold. Matteo rose, and Elena stepped in front of him. Not fully, because she was not foolish, but enough that he had to see her before he saw Ariadne. If you scare your mother now, Elena said, Ariadne wins the last piece of the evening. His chest moved once, then twice, before he looked past Elena to Enzo. The folder, he said. Please, Elena murmured. Matteo's eyes flicked to her, and he corrected himself. Please place the folder on the table, Mrs. Voss. Ariadne laughed. She has trained you quickly. No, Matteo said. She has reminded me slowly. That sentence landed in Elena's ribs. Enzo retrieved the folder only after Ariadne set it down. Inside were transfer documents for the Bellini Women's Medical Foundation, 3 property authorizations, and a letter prepared for Lucia to sign stating that Matteo's involvement in her affairs caused emotional distress. Lucia looked at the letter and went very still. I did not say that. Matteo's face changed, and this time Elena did not stop him from feeling anger. She stopped him only from making it the loudest thing. Then you will say what is true, Elena told Lucia. Not tonight if you are tired. Not for him if that is too much. For yourself. Lucia looked at her. Will they believe me? I do. Matteo turned because the words had come from him, and Lucia stared at her son. He swallowed. I believe you. The soup arrived then, carried by the chef himself in a white bowl with rosemary oil shining green across the top. Elena placed it in front of Lucia and set the spoon on the right side. Lucia picked it up. Her hand still trembled, but nobody corrected her and nobody rushed her. She took one spoonful, then another. Matteo watched as if soup had become a miracle he had been too rich to understand. Elena stepped back. The white serving towel on her arm had violet powder, tea residue, and the faintest crease from Ariadne's wrist. It was no longer just a towel, it was the first honest witness of the evening. By closing time, Bellini's on 6th looked normal from the street. Candles burned low behind the windows, valets brought cars forward, and diners left with coats over their arms and gossip behind their teeth. Rain glistened on the pavement, turning the neon sign across the street into a red smear. Inside, table 7 remained occupied, with Ariadne Voss seated at the far end under Enzo's watch, no longer smiling. Marco had been sent home after admitting he accepted a private packet from Ariadne's assistant and placed it near the tea station without recording it. The assistant manager was writing statements for Matteo's lawyer, a woman named Claudia who arrived in a black coat, silver-rimmed glasses, and the expression of someone who enjoyed facts more than fear. Elena washed cups in the service station because nobody had told her what else to do. Her hands shook now, which annoyed her. She had stopped a slap, challenged a mafia boss, accused a wealthy advisor, handled contaminated tea, and told a dangerous man to say please. Apparently her body had chosen the dish sink as the correct place to remember fear. The white serving towel lay sealed in a clear kitchen bag beside the cup and tea strainer. Claudia labeled everything. You noticed the residue before anyone else? She asked. Yes. You inventoried the tea station? Every Thursday. Why? Because Marco loses things and blames servers. Claudia looked up, and Elena realized too late that honesty had become a habit tonight. Useful, Claudia said. For whom? Possibly you. Elena did not like the sound of that. Rich people called a person useful before they asked too much of her. Matteo entered the service station before Claudia could continue. Without the full audience of the private room, he looked more tired and more dangerous. His tie was loosened. His gloves were gone. His hands were strong, clean, and too controlled. My mother is resting in the blue room upstairs, he said. Bellini's had no blue room for normal customers. It had a private salon on the 2nd floor where families paid for privacy and staff paid with extra stairs. She ate half the soup, Elena said. She asked for you. Elena dried her hands slowly. Why? Because she trusts you. That should have made Elena proud. Instead, it made her cautious. People keep handing me fragile things tonight. Matteo looked at the sealed towel. You stopped the first one from breaking. No, Elena said. I stopped a hand. Your mother did the brave part. He listened to the correction. Actually listened. Then he nodded. Will you come upstairs? Not command. Question. Elena looked at Claudia, who had the decency to pretend paperwork had become fascinating. For Mrs. Bellini, Elena said. Not for you. Understood. They walked through the closed restaurant together. The chairs had been turned onto tables. The floor smelled of lemon cleaner and rain-soaked wool. Enzo waited near the staircase and stepped aside before Elena had to ask. She noticed. Matteo noticed her noticing. He learns quickly, Matteo said. He has survival instincts. Around you, apparently. Good. The blue room was warmer than the dining room, with velvet chairs, framed opera posters, and a small fire burning behind brass mesh. Lucia sat under a cashmere blanket near the hearth. Her pearl brooch lay on the side table beside the bowl of soup. Without the brooch, she looked less like a matriarch and more like an exhausted woman who had survived being managed by people who called it care. Elena approached slowly. Mrs. Bellini. Lucia held out one hand. Elena took it. The old woman's grip was thin but certain. You remembered lemon balm, Lucia said. You remembered my name. Lucia smiled faintly. Names matter when people try to make you disappear. Elena's throat tightened. Matteo stood near the door. Too near. Lucia looked at him. Come here, Matteo. He crossed the room with the controlled caution of a man approaching something more dangerous than any enemy. He sat when Lucia pointed to the chair beside her. Not there, Lucia said. He froze. She pointed lower, to the footstool. Elena bit the inside of her cheek. Matteo Bellini, feared across half the city, lowered himself onto a velvet footstool at his mother's knee. Enzo, visible in the hallway, turned away with heroic discipline. Lucia touched Matteo's cheek. You look like your father when you stand over people. Matteo went still. Elena wished she could leave. She also understood why Lucia had asked her to stay. Sometimes truth needed a witness who had not been trained to protect the family's pride. I did not know, Matteo said. I know. I should have. Yes. The word was not cruel. It was clean. Matteo closed his eyes. Lucia turned to Elena. He will try to fix a year in one night. I guessed. Do not let him. Matteo opened his eyes. Mother. You need someone who tells you no before you call it protection. Elena looked at the fire. I already have a job, she said. Lucia's smile deepened. So did I, once. Matteo looked between them. This conspiracy has formed quickly. It is not a conspiracy, Lucia said. It is women finishing a conversation men interrupted. Elena did laugh then. It escaped before she could stop it, tired and surprised and dangerously warm. Matteo heard it. His expression changed. Not hunger exactly. Recognition. As if the sound had entered a locked room and lit a lamp. Elena looked away first. I should go, she said. Lucia squeezed her hand. Thank you for my soup. And for the slap? Matteo asked quietly. Lucia looked at Elena, then at the folded towel visible through the evidence bag in Claudia's hand by the door. No, Lucia said. Thank you for not letting them decide I was already gone. Elena had no answer for that. The next morning, Bellini's on 6th did not open for lunch. The sign on the door said private maintenance issue. The kitchen staff knew better. By 10 o'clock, Claudia had taken statements from 12 employees, 2 drivers, the chef, and the florist who delivered arrangements to the private dining room every Tuesday. By 11, Marco's office had yielded 3 envelopes of cash, 2 unsigned schedules, and a list of staff members Ariadne had paid to report Lucia's behavior. By noon, Elena was tired enough to fall asleep standing. She had not gone home. That was partly because Lucia asked her to stay for breakfast and partly because Matteo had said, "A car can take you," in the tone of a man trying very hard not to say, "My car will take you because I said so." Elena had answered, later. He had accepted it. That mattered more than it should have. Now she stood in Marco's office with Claudia, going through tea invoices and staff notes. Matteo leaned against the doorframe, black shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms, saying nothing for once. "This one," Elena said. Claudia looked over. "The lavender supplier?" "It is not lavender. It is labeled lavender so nobody questions the smell." Elena tapped the invoice. "But the tea packet had bitter mint under the bergamot, and this supplier ships only to private residences, not restaurants." "See the delivery code?" "BLM. Bellini Lucia Maria," Claudia said. "Or Bell Medical," Matteo said. Elena glanced at him. He had learned quickly too. "Ariadne used the restaurant because your mother trusted public rooms," Elena said. "If Mrs. Bellini felt strange after tea at home, she might blame the house, the pills, age. If she felt strange here, Ariadne could say restaurants upset her." Matteo's jaw tightened. "And I would stop bringing her." "Which would isolate her more." Claudia wrote that down. Matteo pushed off the doorframe. "How long?" Elena knew what he was asking. How long had his mother been managed, dosed, corrected, embarrassed, and slowly translated into incompetence while he mistook silence for peace? "Long enough that she started asking permission before drinking tea," Elena said. He absorbed that like a blow. This time he did not look for something to break. He looked for a chair and sat down. Good. Some lessons landed only when a powerful man stopped standing. A knock came at the office door. The chef entered with a small tray, lemon balm tea, honey on the side, toast, and a folded white serving towel. Elena looked at the towel. "The evidence one is sealed," the chef said quickly. "This is clean." "Why bring it?" "Mrs. Bellini asked for it. Said it makes the room behave." Elena closed her eyes for 1 second. Matteo saw. "You do not have to carry what happened forever," he said. "I know." "Do you?" She opened her eyes. "Do you?" Claudia's pen paused. The chef retreated with excellent instincts. Matteo looked at Elena for a long moment. "No," he said. The honesty disarmed her more than any charm would have. "But I am learning." Elena took the clean towel from the tray and folded it over her forearm. The motion was so familiar she almost hated it. Service could be dignity, but it could also become a costume people used to decide how little they owed you. Matteo watched the movement. "When you wear that," he said, "people think you are there to serve them." "I am. Not the way they mean." She looked at him. He held her gaze without trying to win. "What do you want, Elena Marrow?" The full name startled her. "Sleep." His mouth almost moved. "After that." "Rent paid on time." "My mother not worrying." "A manager who does not steal hours." "Shoes that don't make my feet burn by 9. A life where noticing everything is not the only thing keeping me safe." He nodded once, as if each item were not small. That was dangerous too. Men with money often turned women's needs into grand gestures because grand gestures made them feel generous while preserving the world that caused the need. Elena did not want to become another foundation in a folder. "Do not offer to buy the restaurant," she said. Matteo blinked. Claudia smiled into her notes. "I had not," Matteo said. "You considered it." Briefly. "Don't." "What should I do instead?" "Pay the staff for the hours Marco stole. Make the schedules legal. Stop letting your private rooms operate like separate kingdoms. And ask your mother what she wants for dinner before choosing the place." Claudia wrote faster. Matteo looked at the clean white towel on Elena's arm. "And you?" "I want to go home." He stood immediately, then stopped himself. May I arrange a car? You may ask if I want one. Do you want one? She was too tired for the bus. She was too proud to admit that easily. She admitted it anyway because pride had never paid for arch support. Yes. Matteo nodded to Enzo through the doorway. No command needed. Enzo went. Progress looked strange in dangerous houses. Sometimes it looked like a man not needing to prove he had been obeyed. Elena slept 14 hours. When she woke, there were 3 missed calls from the restaurant, 1 text from her mother asking whether she was alive, and a sealed envelope under her apartment door. She stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it with a butter spreader. Inside was not cash. Good. There was a formal letter from Claudia, a payroll correction for every unpaid inventory hour Elena had worked in the last 2 years, and a separate note in Lucia Bellini's handwriting. Dear Elena, I am drinking lemon balm while writing this. No one has sweetened it for me. That is a small freedom, but today I like small freedoms best. Thank you for the towel. Lucia Bellini. Elena sat on the edge of her bed and cried once. Not beautifully. Not dramatically. Just one exhausted, angry, relieved sound that startled her own room. Then she showered, put on her spare uniform, and went back to Bellini's on 6th because rent, grief, and revolutions all still had schedules. The restaurant had changed by the time she arrived. Not enough to become a fairy tale. The floor still needed polishing. The espresso machine still hissed like it resented humanity. 2 line cooks still argued about parsley. But the posted schedule had been replaced, the staff meal table was full, and Marco's name had been removed from the office door. The assistant manager saw Elena and stood up too fast. Ms. Marrow. Elena stopped. Don't do that. Do what? Act like I became dangerous because a dangerous man listened to me. His face flushed. Right. Sorry. Be sorry by fixing section assignments. Yes. She tied her apron. The white serving towels were stacked by the station, freshly laundered. Elena took one, folded it, and tucked it over her arm. For the first time, the gesture did not feel like surrender. At 7 p.m., Lucia arrived for dinner. She came with Matteo, Enzo, and only one other guard. Ariadne was gone from the world of visible dining, though Elena doubted she was gone from the larger story. Women like Ariadne did not vanish because one plan failed. They retreated into paperwork and waited for softer doors. Lucia wore green instead of navy. She carried no companion's permission in her posture. Good evening, Mrs. Bellini, Elena said. Lucia, the old woman corrected. Elena smiled. Lucia. Matteo watched the exchange with an expression Elena did not trust herself to name. Your table is ready. Did you choose it? Lucia asked. Yes. Then I approve. Elena led them not to the private dining room, but to a corner table near the open kitchen, warm, visible, and alive with ordinary noise. Matteo looked at the room. Here? Your mother said she likes hearing kitchens. Lucia sat down before Matteo could object. I do. He closed his mouth. Elena placed menus on the table. Lemon balm? After dinner, Lucia said. Tonight I want wine. Matteo's eyebrows lifted. Lucia looked at him. A small glass. He turned to Elena. Elena turned the wine list toward Lucia. Red or white? Matteo lowered his gaze to the table. He was learning. Halfway through dinner, a man in a gray suit entered the restaurant and asked for Claudia. Elena noticed him because his shoes were wet though the rain had stopped an hour earlier, and because he held his coat closed with the wrong hand, as if protecting an inside pocket. He did not belong to the normal dinner crowd. He belonged to consequences. Elena crossed to the host stand before he reached the dining room. Can I help you? Private delivery. For whom? Mrs. Bellini. His eyes moved past her toward Lucia. Elena stepped into his line of sight. I'll take it. No. The word came too quickly. Matteo's head turned across the room. Elena felt his attention land on her back. She did not turn. Then you can wait outside, she said. The man's expression hardened. You are staff. And this is a restaurant. We specialize in denying people tables. He tried to move around her. Elena snapped the white serving towel open between them like a small flag. Not a weapon. A warning. Every server in the room saw it. So did Matteo. He rose, but he did not rush forward. Instead, he spoke to Enzo, who moved toward the side aisle without alarming Lucia. Good. Elena kept her voice even. Set the envelope on the host stand. I was told to place it in her hand. By whom? He smiled. That was the mistake. People who smiled before answering usually believed the answer had already won. Ariadne Voss, he said. The restaurant seemed to inhale. Lucia set down her fork. Matteo reached the host stand. The man's confidence faltered, but only slightly. Mr. Bellini, I was instructed by a woman no longer welcome near my mother. This concerns her foundation. Elena looked at the envelope. The paper was thick, cream, and sealed with pale lavender wax. Don't touch it barehanded, she said. Matteo stopped with his hand halfway out. The man noticed the pause. Elena noticed him noticing. Why? Matteo asked. Lavender wax again. Last night the glove transfer on the towel was violet. If Ariadne thinks like she did last night, she expects you to tear it open fast and angry. Matteo looked at her. And if I do? You give her whatever is on that seal. The messenger stepped back. Enzo closed the space behind him. Elena took a clean bread tong from the host station and lifted the envelope onto a silver tray. Kitchen freezer, she said. Matteo stared. Cold makes wax brittle. Easier to separate from the paper without smearing. She glanced at him. Unless you prefer force. I am developing objections to it. Good. They opened the envelope in the kitchen freezer while the chef guarded the door with a ladle and the seriousness of a man defending his kingdom. Inside was a single page and a pressed flower. The page was addressed to Lucia. The flower was foxglove. Elena knew the shape from her grandmother's old garden book. Beautiful, bell-shaped, dangerous in the wrong hands. Matteo read the first line and went pale beneath his control. Your son will never believe how much you signed willingly. Lucia appeared in the kitchen doorway. Nobody had seen her rise. Then he can hear it from me, she said. Matteo turned. Mother, you should sit. No. The word was small. It was also complete. Elena smiled before she could stop herself. Lucia stepped into the kitchen, green dress brushing against stainless steel, pearl earrings catching fluorescent light. She looked out of place and more herself than she had in the private dining room. Ariadne is right about one thing, Lucia said. I signed many papers willingly. I was lonely. I was tired. I was flattered when someone told me I could still help. I was ashamed when I became confused. But I did not sign away my voice. Matteo said nothing. He did not rescue the sentence. He let her finish. Lucia looked at Elena. Is that better? Much. Good. Then she looked at her son. Now you may be angry. Matteo's mouth twitched in disbelief. With permission? With direction, Lucia said. There is a difference. Elena folded the white serving towel over her arm and realized she was witnessing a family learning a new language one corrected sentence at a time. The messenger was not harmed. That mattered to Elena. Not because she cared about him, but because she had spent too many years watching powerful people turn every problem into someone else's body. Matteo questioned him in the manager's office with Claudia present, Enzo at the door, and Elena outside with Lucia because Lucia had asked for company and Elena had learned that requests mattered. The messenger gave up Ariadne's temporary address in 14 minutes. He also gave up Belle, the false doctor, who was not a doctor at all but a retired estate clerk with access to old family seals. By midnight, Claudia had enough documents to freeze the foundation transfers. Matteo had enough names to ruin several men quietly. Lucia had eaten dessert in the kitchen with the chef and declared the cannoli too sweet. Elena had worked a full dinner shift around a family crisis and still remembered table 12's allergy. That, she thought, should count as a miracle. Near closing, Matteo found her at the linen station. She was sorting white serving towels into stacks, dining room, bar, private room, stained. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. Her head felt full of tea leaves, legal threats, and Lucia's small brave no. Matteo leaned against the opposite counter. My mother wants you to come to Sunday dinner. Your mother should rest. She said inviting people is restful if she is the one deciding. Hard to argue with that. I tried. She enjoyed it. Elena smiled at the towel stack. Matteo watched her hands. I owe you, he said. Her smile faded. Don't. He nodded slowly. Wrong phrase. Very. I am grateful. Better. I respect you. She looked up. That one landed differently. Gratitude could be paid, exaggerated, performed, or used to make a woman feel rude for setting boundaries. Respect had weight if it survived inconvenience. Do you? She asked. Enough to know I should ask what respect looks like before I decide I have given it. Elena stared at him. That was almost healthy. I have had a difficult 48 hours. She laughed quietly. There it was again, that dangerous warmth in his eyes, not soft enough to make him harmless and not hard enough to make her leave. Sunday dinner, he said. Will you come? As staff? His expression changed at once. No. As evidence? No. As your mother's project? The corner of his mouth moved. Possibly, but she outranks me. Matteo. He straightened. As my guest, he said. If you want that. If you do not, I will still correct the schedules, pay the staff, remove Ariadne from my mother's affairs, and learn to ask questions before deciding protection means control. Elena leaned one hip against the linen counter. That was a long sentence. I practiced. On whom? Enzo. Poor Enzo. He survived. She looked at the white towels between them. Yesterday, one had stopped a slap. Tonight, one had stopped an envelope from becoming another trap. Tomorrow, they would wipe wine, polish glasses, cover bread, and disappear into laundry like nothing holy had happened to them. Maybe that was the point. Ordinary things did not stop being ordinary after they saved someone. They simply carried the memory better than people expected. I will come to Sunday dinner, Elena said. Matteo's face went still. She lifted one finger. But I sit near your mother. She would insist. And no private room. The garden room? Does it have exits? 3. Good. 2 men outside. 1. 2, but they eat. She considered him. Fine. They eat. He looked pleased in a way he tried to hide. Elena picked up the stained towel stack. Matteo reached for it, then stopped. May I? She handed it to him. Laundry bin by the back door. The Mafia Boss carried the stained towels through his own restaurant. The bartender saw him and dropped a spoon. The chef looked delighted. Enzo looked as if the world had become complicated beyond his training. Lucia, standing at the kitchen entrance with a shawl around her shoulders, smiled like a queen watching a boarder move. Elena followed with the clean stack. At the back door, Matteo set the stained towels in the bin exactly where she pointed. You understand this does not make you humble, she said. No? It makes you supervised. By you? By reality. Same thing lately. She should not have liked that. She did anyway. Outside, the alley smelled of rain, basil stems, and city heat rising from old pavement. A black car waited near the curb, engine low. Enzo opened the rear door and then, under Elena's look, closed it again and waited to be asked. Matteo noticed. Do you want the car tonight? He asked. Yes. May I ride with you? Elena looked at him for a long second. He did not fill the silence. Good. Halfway, she said. Halfway? You get out at the bridge and let the car take me home alone. Why? Because if you know where I live tonight, every boundary gets harder tomorrow. His first instinct objected. She saw it. Then he folded the instinct away. Halfway, he agreed. The drive was quiet. Not empty. Quiet. The city moved past in rain-bright windows, bakeries closing, bars opening, women laughing under umbrellas, delivery bikes cutting through traffic like impatient insects. Matteo sat beside Elena with his hands resting on his knees, looking too large for the back seat and too careful for the man she had first seen command a room with 2 fingers. At the bridge, he told the driver to stop. Before he got out, he looked at the white serving towel still folded over Elena's arm. May I ask one more question? You are becoming fond of those. What made you move? Elena looked through the windshield at the wet road. She could have said dignity. She could have said instinct. She could have said that nobody deserved to be hit while people with clean hands watched. All of that was true. But the truest answer was smaller. Your mother looked like she had already apologized for being hurt, Elena said. I hate that look. Matteo's face changed. So do I, he said. Now. He accepted the correction. Now, he said. Then he stepped out into the rain. The driver continued toward Elena's apartment, and for once, no black car followed too close behind. Elena leaned back against the seat and closed her eyes. The white serving towel rested in her lap. Clean. Ordinary. Ready for whatever hand rose next. If you were in that dining room, what would you remember most, Elena catching the wrist, Lucia choosing her own tea, or Matteo learning to ask before protecting?